Can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes, no problem.
Oh, great stuff, great stuff. I thought I'd just give you a call like 1 minute earlier just so that I can make sure everything is set up and you can correctly hear me and everything.
Yeah, no problems.
How you doing anyway? How's your day been, Doctor?
Yeah, they've been, work,
Yeah.
missing, work.
The usual stuff, isn't it?
The usual stuff,
Yeah.
work.
Oh, that's amazing.
And future presentations and talks and just get things organised, yeah?
Hectic period, isn't it?
Yeah, talk about it. Especially, October being Black History Month. So that's when you tend to find most of my talks are into.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine, yeah, because I'm sure a lot of the sort of like Black organisations would ideally like to book you around this time to have you talk at their events and so forth.
Yeah, let's see if I can hear a little vibration there. I'm wondering if this is to do with the speaker. Here we go.
Yeah.
Just the speaker over here. Right. How's that?
Perfect. It sounds great on my end. I can hear you perfectly fine.
Yeah, okay, because I think my speaker was up against mine.
Oh, no worries.
The vibrations making. Oh, there we go. That's better.
Oh, that's great. First of all, I'd like to, say a big welcome to Let's Do Humans podcast. And it's an absolute pleasure for you taking your time out to come and speak to me for a couple of minutes just to sort of get to grips with who you are and the work you do. Because I've come across your work online and I just think maths is one of those subjects is really intriguing and is bigger than what people think it is. Okay. And through some of your talks that I've seen and a lot of your content, I've realized how important maths is and how it can be used in the wider sense of what we see maths as, because usually maths we assume is to do with money and just basic counting, but it can solve major problems as well that involve mathematical equations. So that's the reason why I got in touch with you, and I was truly privileged that you said you would like to come on the podcast and have a talk with me, which is fantastic. So I really appreciate that, first of all.
Yeah, great. Has the podcast started, or is this offline?
No, it's good. It's on now. We're live.
It's online. Okay.
We're live. No, it's gonna go online afterwards, but we're recording it.
Oh, see, are we recording it now? Okay,
yeah, we're recording. If it was live, I would have told you.
I was just thinking, okay, this is just making sure that this. Trying to talk in my BBC voice, So
there's no BBC sort of podcast. We're just trying to speak to like a wider audience. So just feel free to talk however you like, because I know when you're doing the more national media stuff, you put on the BBC voice.
Hello, my name is Dr. Chamberlain. I have to speak very slowly and really articulate my words because I'm not allowed to laugh too loud because people won't understand what I'm saying.
It's funny. So when you go on that type of mainstream media, do they prep you on that? Do they tell you like, okay, this is how you're supposed to present yourself and this is how we want you to talk?
I think it was like, say, 5 years ago. I went on to there was like a BBC training, like it's called BBC Expert Voices.
Yeah.
They did like a drive to have more diversity in expert voices. So BBC one day and did my training, and I was talking naturally like a mathematician, really very fast and enthusiastic, and saying
throwing numbers at them.
Nobody understands what you're saying. You're talking too quick, so I had to pay myself to slow down and be very articulate and pronounce my words so that people can follow what I am saying.
I think what in particular with maths, I would assume, because it's such a complex like subject, they try to make sure that you get your words out, so like the layman's like us, like me, can understand what it is that you're talking about, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes. I mean, I think one great thing is when somebody says, "Okay, can you tell us about?" I'm going to ask you a question on the applications. You tell us about the application of mathematics, and then the interview goes, right, we know that mathematics is into A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. I thought, that's all my answers. I got nothing else to say.
Oh, man. That's incredible. But Dr. Nira, can you tell us who Dr. Nira is? Can you just give us a brief history of who you are and what it is that you do?
Oh, gosh.
I have an idea, but I want my listeners out there to sort of get an idea.
Okay. Right. I am a professional mathematician. I work out in industry. I wear 3 hats at this present moment. Okay. I'm the president designate of the Institute of Mathematics and its Application. That means come next year, I'll become president of the largest professional mathematical society in the UK.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
Also, I am a visiting fellow at Loughborough University, where I actually support and help with their MSc in industrial mathematical modeling at the mathematical sciences department. And there's a certain research topic that I do research there. So sometimes when I do my talks, I represent Loughborough University as a visiting fellow.
Oh, I see.
I also work out in industry. I've been a professional mathematician for let's say the last over 25 years.
Oh, wow.
And I'm known as a mathematical modeler. Now, what is a mathematical modeler? Now, there are certain problems that you would say, you use mathematics to solve that. Yeah. But there are certain real world problems, which, here's a real world problem. There's no mathematical equation that you can just look up in the book and there's the answer at the end of the book. The problems are too complex, too messy, and it's not so easy to see how mathematics would solve that problem. So this is where you come to what's called a mathematical modeler. Put in my BBC voice here. What a modeler does is that they will see a real world problem and then they will translate that into a mathematical equation or
make sense of it.
Yeah, and then solve that mathematical equation, and then after that, we'll then apply the solution back into the real world. And that's most of applied mathematics that we see today started off with a mathematical model, and then when that mathematical model becomes established, then it becomes applied mathematics. So, for instance, give you an example, it's like sending a rocket up to the moon. Once upon a time, the mathematics to do that didn't actually exist. You had people to come up, generate the logical argument, the mathematical form to come up with a solution, apply it into the real world, and say, okay, this is how this will work. And then through years and years and years, it becomes established. Applied mathematics is very much established mathematical modeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's more the accurate calculations from point A to point B, basically. Is that what you're? Yeah.
So for instance, I'll give you an example. Like, so for instance, if somebody says to me, right, Professor Stephen Hawking is concerned about the rise of AI, artificial intelligence. Yeah. He believes that artificial intelligence will rise at a certain rate, that soon that there's going to be a time in the future that it will overtake human intelligence. Yeah. And he believes that when it overtakes human intelligence, this could have dire consequences on humans. Yeah. Yeah. And then people talk about artificial intelligence takeover and artificial intelligence apocalypse. Now, when we're talking about artificial intelligence apocalypse or takeover, we're not necessarily talking about the Hollywood killer robots walking down the street.
But isn't that a possibility as well, though, with AI? Because do we know exactly how they're going to behave?
Yeah, but that is a possibility. But the thing is, the question is, that's a possibility. You're quite right. But before you even get there, do you know what I mean? Before you even get there, there is a scenario where, for instance, it has been argued that what humans, if AI gets to a certain stage, it's where humans will give AI its decision-making strategies. Yeah. So, for instance, running business, it's saying to run its business, to run the strategy, we'll hand it over to AI to make business decisions. Now, that where you have a human handing over control to an AI, that's much more realistic. That is much more closer than you way down the line of a robot killer robots walking down the street. Yeah, that is much more realistic, more to reality. And the question is, if, for instance, we gave AI decision making over the world economy, would it make decisions which are conducive to social cohesion? That's the question.
That's a question. Yeah.
You see how what people like, where you see something which are perceived as undemocratic. I mean, we can talk about Brexit. Now you got the two sides. You got one side that says, "Wait a minute, we voted for Brexit. We voted for Leave. Yeah. Why is it not happening? It's because of you establishment." And then you got the other people who are even saying, you didn't pose the right questions. You lied to us. Hence, we don't want to leave. This is undemocratic. See, when people see something beyond their control, they get angry. Look what happened in Greece, where when the EU decided saying, right, we're going to raise the cost of living.
Yeah.
We're gonna push down your wages because your country's in debt. Do you see what the people, how they actually protested? Because there was somebody above the government making their lives a misery. Now replace those decision making with, instead of being a human, it actually being artificial intelligence.
So would you say that would be more accurate then, if artificial intelligence was to lead such decision making, because they would be able to make the calculations that would enable them to know what's right? So not necessarily what's right, but what would work.
Well, there are situations you can say, I can talk about medical, where you say AI is definitely is good, what makes things work. However, with AI, there's a lack of ethics. It will make decisions which again has its consequences. For instance, I give you one example. Let's say, for instance, an energy firm wants to work out what is the best strategy moving forward, and it hands it over to an AI. Now, hypothetically, an AI may decide saying, well, the best way for a firm to make the most profit is to put all of his competitors out of business, create a monopoly, and then raise the prices so high so that only the super rich can afford it, and henceforth invoke energy poverty. See, now an AI can make that decision, and what it's done, it's created profit for that company, or for the shareholders of that company. However, for everybody else, we are now living by candlelight. So me and you are not having this conversation over Skype because we're living by candlelight. Do you know what I mean?
Would you personally say that AI going forward would be a good thing for us, or would you think it would be catastrophic, as some people would say?
It's all right. Well, here we go. It's depends like this. I mean, one of the things I do, is one of the research I have done. Is one of my major talks is about the mathematics that can stop an AI apocalypse. Yeah. Okay. Now, and one of the things and I tend to target tend to be like those in the 20s, and those are teenagers. Because there's an American magazine called Business Insight that says, come 2050, the last human standing will be mathematicians. We'll be the last. Standing. So I'm saying, well, if mathematicians are going to be the last human standing, then it is our responsibility to ensure that the AI that comes in the future is a safe one that's got ethics. Do you know what I mean? If we're going to be the last human standing. So one of the things that I say, because I'm not people say, am I anti-AI? No, I'm not anti-AI, but I do come up with this thought experiment. Would you design a high performance car without brakes?
Definitely not. No.
There you go. So, do you know what I mean?
But my worry with AI, so I'm not really necessarily anti-AI, because I think AI is here anyway. Like, I think our mobile phones is artificial intelligence, because it's become a part of us. It's an extension of us. So we kind of become an extension of the machine. But my worry is, like, as human beings, we're organic creatures. We're flesh and blood. So we're easily disposed of, if you think of it in that sense. But when it comes to the machine, will it reach a point where they will be able to determine their own, they'll gain autonomy, and they'll be able to determine their own sort of like status within like the world as such, and start making decisions which we can't reverse?
I mean, does that stage, which potentially could happen, believe me, before you even reach there, even if before you reach there, the AI apocalypse that I've discussed, do you know what I mean? See, to reach there, you've got to go through this stage. Do you know what I mean? And the stage that I'm talking about is will be very challenging for humans. Do you know what I mean? And so the idea that I'm walking and there's this computer robot at school telling me what to do and saying your grades are not good at, before we even get there, do you know what I mean? There's, the Western society, and the world its foundation is the economy. Now, once you have AI not controlling, influencing how the economy goes. So even before you get, to, the Terminator Matrix, guess what? Before you get there, there is this phase that you have to go through. And people don't look at this phase. People look at that final phase,
the end, yeah,
the Hollywood phase. But if you even get there, we're talking about AI influencing the economy. Do you know what I mean? And one of the questions that was asked to me was, let's say, for instance, you have you're in a company, you've got a firm, and the question is, how do we know that our competitors are not using advanced AI against us? And that was the whole formula of my research, because if you have a firm that has advanced AI beyond everybody else, would it evolve to a stage where that firm generating franchises because they become successful, would it get to a stage where it is then running the world economy? Yeah. And once you got one company or a group of companies running the world economy, and it's making the AI is making decisions, then would it make decisions that are conducive to social cohesion? See, that's the debate and talk about. But as a scientist, I mean, I can't say yes or no. All I can do is, as a scientist, I can create what's called a mathematical model of that scenario, and then create a simulation of the solution. It's just a simulation. It's just like a dynamical animation of the solution of the mathematical model, which then I can actually simulate the economy. Actually, how many times does the economy goes to like an AI takeover, an AI apocalypse, because you're having an AI company that comes up and dominate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And how many times so far does that scenario come about?
Oh, right. In terms of the simulation that I've run, it's occurred 80% of the time.
Where is completely taken over?
Yep. Sorry, BBC. I'm not allowed to talk. I'm not allowed to laugh.
I know. This is not the BBC. This is LetsDoHumans. You can laugh as much as you want because the apocalypse is near.
So not so necessarily the apocalypse is near. So
I know.
80% of the time, would there be an apocalypse? Now the question is, have you ever watched Marvel Infinity Wars?
Yes, yeah.
Right. Okay. Spoiler alert. If you have not watched Marvel Infinity Wars, don't listen to the next 5 minutes. Because I'm about to spoil it.
I'm sure everyone's watched it by now. It's been out for a while.
Well, you just don't know. There may be somebody saying, I am just waiting for the DVD for Christmas or something.
That's
true. Or those people who were too young when it came out, thinking, got the right.
Yeah.
Spoiler. Now, there is a part where I think they're battling Thanos on his home. Don't know if it's his home planet, but on a strange planet. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what you see is Doctor Strange. He seems like to be in a trance, and he's looking into the future, and he's looking at all these different permutations and combinations of how they could actually beat Thanos in the future. And he went through. Can't remember how many combinations were
thousands of them, millions of millions, I think.
And then see, and I think Iron Man went up to him, Tony Stark, saying, "So what are you doing?" He said, "I'm trying to look at all the possibilities in the future, and I've considered millions of these possibilities." And it says, "Well, how many of those possibilities did we win?" And he goes, "Only one."
Yeah.
See, now what I'm doing with this simulation is that I'm simulating loads of scenarios. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find the strategy that can beat an AI.
I see. So we're fighting against Thanos here, but just trying to figure out the best way. But okay, so another one of the theories that I'll come across quite a bit in regards to AIs is that what if they become binary? So they become black and white, as in the sense that right and wrong. So right now at the moment, like we have a judicial system, we have individual morality, we have group morality. But what if the AI starts to develop their own version of morality, which is very binary? So it's like if you steal a sweet from a shop, for instance, that is straight away punishable by whatever means of punishment they deem suitable for that crime. So is there going to be an in between, and what is that possibility like?
Okay, well, the thing is, I mean, even though yes, it does. With the way that AI works, so yes, there is a right, wrong, black, white, but the way it works now is that what it does, it works out saying, so for instance, we have a state called 1, does this person look like he's going to steal a sweet? Yeah. You know, here's this person walking into the shop. Does this person looks like he's going to steal a sweet? You know, now the AI doesn't go 1 or 0. What it does do, it comes up with a probability. It works out like a probability. The probability of this person stealing a sweet is 0.75, 3, and a 0.6. Now, depending on what it does, is that they create a certain classes or classifications. Like if the probability is greater than 0.8, get security to jump on them straight away.
Yeah.
You know, if it's less than 0.2, don't worry about them. If it's in between 0.4 and 0.7, just watch them, because we are not too sure. That is where it is right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So even though you do talk about your 1 and 0, it comes out with a probability between a number between 0 and 1, which is classified, let's say, a probability, and then from that it makes a decision.
Oh,
now,
okay.
I'm not saying that each of the decisions are correct, you know, nor will the decision will be correct every single time. But what I do is, from that, you know, if there's like a 90% chance I believe that this person's going to steal the sweet, guess what? That means, hypothetically, if you got the probabilities right, that means 10% of the time you're going to be wrong.
Yeah.
Hey,
but then, have you seen Minority Report, the movie?
Yeah, I see Minority Report. You know, where we got this AI and they're trying to whether you're going to do a murder in the future. Yeah. Yeah.
So with Minority Report, people are getting punished and arrested for crimes that they projected to commit in the future.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, this person will potentially plan to do something to their partner or their friend and harm them in some way, and then they send out the police to arrest them and imprison them for it. So, like, for instance, as you said, the AI calculates the potential of you committing a crime. So how would we as a system be able to structure like our judicial system based on that? So it's like, okay, if I'm potentially going to steal a sweet and the AI prevents that from happening, will I get punished for my thoughts and my potential to steal, or will I just get warned and then sent off my way? So how would we work that out as a society?
Well, I mean, the what you'd want, ideally, what you would want is that you would want to use AI to reduce the risk. Yeah. Also, for instance, or to influence. So if you think that someone's going to do something bad, you just want to influence them not to do something bad. So, for instance, if an AI says, guess what? Over there in that house there's going to be a burglary. So guess what? We put a police car there. And guess what?
The burglary doesn't happen. Yeah.
But the question is, then there's a dilemma. If the police car wasn't there, do we know that the burglary was going to take place? Do you know what I mean? So that's true. So yes, you can, and AI does come up with these decisions. Yeah, these decisions like saying, right, oh, see that house, for instance, he give you a good clue, right? You see that house, that nice looking house, that's got the door wide open, and it's and someone's put on social media, I'm on holiday for 3 months. Oh dear, my house is wide open, and you can see the high tech things in the window. Guess what? The propensity, the probability of that place could be robbed is high. Yeah, but if you put a police car out there and nobody goes in there, do you know what I mean? How do we know that nobody was going to say? But you got the inkling that under the circumstances. Now that's
prevention is better than cure, basically. That's the whole
prevention is better than cure. But then you come onto the the area, like say, for instance, right, if we put a security camera in certain places, certain people will start saying, well, wait a minute, why are you putting security cameras in our area? And then you see that other area, they're not security cameras, and I know that they're taking it, they're creating crime. You see, that's
there's going to be clear discrimination, isn't it, based on
so that's where so you have to be very, when it comes to AI, and decision making and prevention and all that stuff, you have to be very careful. So that's why when it comes to medical, let's say, for instance, if we use AI to detect whether someone's got cancer,
Fantastic.
Saying, we think that you've got to get cancer. Please guys get yourself checked out. Oh, we got yourself checked out. You didn't get cancer, but you're cool with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather that than nobody knows. The AI could have detected me and boom. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
most definitely. Yeah. I think technology is a wonderful thing going forward, and especially when it comes to the medical field and early detection of various diseases and treatment as well. Stuff like nanotechnology, which I know a lot of the major firms are looking at right now, sending little mini nanos into the body and treating tumors and so forth. So that's the great part. But then also, as humans, we can't prevent ourselves from thinking, what if we lose control of these things that we create, and then they become sort of like the overseers of us, and we become imprisoned by them?
Yeah, I mean, we have to, let's say, be careful. Like say, when it comes to my research, doesn't really touch on the AI or other medical stuff. But so because the question that was asked of me as a mathematical modeler was business, business versus business competition, something using an advanced AI, and that's what, and that was one of my talks that I do in one of my research areas.
The interesting thing about business modeling, can you tell me how you use maths to sort of predict strategies and the next move of competitors? Like, how does that work? If you just give me a little breakdown of that.
Okay, so for instance, what you do is that again, you create almost like the mathematical framework, almost like you create the stage. Think about it like a theatre. You create the environment, and then you put your actors in an environment, and then you just watch what actually occurs. You give them certain rules, and then you just sit back and you just watch what occurs, and then you rerun it again. And because what happens when you rerun it again, there may be a different outcome, and then you rerun it again. And then what you wanted to see was what strategy does the model predict the most. And then from that, you can say, well, there's a, let's say, for instance, we're talking about energy companies, fighting each other, and they're targeting a certain number of customers, and they got customers that are due to renew the contract, and away we go, and they're saying, well, okay, what would motivate a customer to move from one company to another? Is it about the service? Is it about the price? And if I drop the price, how many customers do I attract? And if I raise my price, how many customers do I lose? And then you put all of those rules into like say a mathematical model, and you do a simulation, and then you actually see how it's almost like a chess game. You actually see how
the pieces moving.
You see the pieces moving. So once you put the rules in, and you're saying, well, look, I can't say for definite this person will make a decision, but by a certain probability, I know that, for instance, if I'm paying £100 for my gas bill, and somebody says, right, we will pay, for your gas bill, it's going to be £20. There's going to be a certain probability that I will move to that other company.
Yeah.
And then once you do that, away you go. So it's almost like it's a bit like football. It's a bit like sports. Within the sports game, you know that every sports game have certain amount of rules, but within those rules, the agent makes certain decision, and whatever decision they make will affect what the opponent
Most definitely, yeah.
And then what they do will affect what you do, and you simulate that, and then you see who at the end of the day wins the game, and then you just do the simulation, and then what happens is that when you do loads of simulations, and then you come to look out into the real world, you're living in the real world, and saying, actually, I remember this scenario. This scenario is simulation. X, now this opponent has done this, has done A, and I said that if we do B, the probability of us winning is.
Okay, I see. That's super interesting, and that must be fun for you to work on and also see happening in the real world. Because I'm sure when you're walking around, you're able to figure out why people are like sort of gravitating towards one particular business instead of the other. So that's quite interesting. But then, does that mainly only work when two people are competing directly against each other?
No, it works. I mean, so for instance, what I've for my PhD, I wrote it was like a generic model of all of these businesses or competitors all competing with each other, and they're like competing. So what you have is that you have a finite number. You have all of these players fighting over a finite resource. So it's like a generic version of the economy of competition, and you actually see how things play out.
Yeah. Does it show that humans are quite predictable in our behaviors?
I wouldn't say predictable, but we're not on the other scale.
We can be manipulated.
Humans I'm a mathematical manipulator, certainly not. So I wouldn't say that humans are predictable, but humans, I'd say this on the other side of the coin, humans are not random.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
I completely understand. Yeah,
but they're not random. And I think if you get, for instance, if you told that 100 children find a space in a school assembly, just stand in a space. Yeah. Now, if it was, and they all stand in the space, and what you find is that they would try and find a space where they are probably almost equally distanced away from each other. Now that is not random. Random means that you expect a certain group to be all clumped up together, some to be all distance apart.
Yeah.
So what I say is humans are not exactly predictable, but then they are not completely random.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
that's very interesting. And what causes that, though? So, for instance, like the scenario that you just gave about the kids, what is it psychologically or mathematically that causes that for them to cluster up?
Humans are we are creatures of habit. Yeah, we are creatures of habit. There are certain things that we do that follow a pattern. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what we do. There's things that we do every single day. Do you know what I mean? There's things that you do which follows a pattern. Yeah. And that's the key of a mathematician is to find that pattern, predict that pattern, understand that pattern, and then from there you can actually try and influence the outcome.
I see.
Influence
instead of manipulate. It's definitely influence. It's actually intriguing because in society, when you watch a lot of stuff, like let's say for instance you go on social media and you go into a normal person's Instagram versus a celebrity Instagram, you see the difference in terms of like the numbers, the engagement, and there's a reason behind it, because there's a reason why people are being drawn to one particular person instead of being drawn to another. So it's all a part of like our behaviors and stuff. But going back to the origins of you and maths, like how did you? Because that was a question. So yeah, like what was it about? No, I mean I've loved the parts that we've covered anyway. But what was it about maths that drew you? Because as I was trying to explain before, maths I found it very difficult in school with maths in particular, and maybe it was because of the way I was looking at it. And then I just gave up on it simply because I wasn't getting it. Algebra wasn't clicking. A lot of the equations wasn't clicking. But what was it about you in particular? And what is it about maths that makes you enjoy and drawn to it?
Well, I think when I was young, and all my friends were into Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. Yeah. I do remember. This may sound weird, but I do remember picking up a calculator and pressing the buttons until it all flashes at me. So I do remember playing Mr. Super Mathematician. I remember doing that. And I do remember going to my school, go to the secondary school, open day secondary school. And I remember seeing there was like a sine curve. It looks like all these hills, going up and down, like waves. Sorry, like waves going up and down. And I was looking at it, and I just remember going, wow, I would like to do that. And I'm thinking, cool. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What to me, I wasn't very much the numbers person. If somebody says, "Oh, what is 256 times 256?" I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell them that the answer is 6,536.
But you know it now.
I
got confused. I was about to pull out my calculator.
I was never, I was never that. But this whole idea that when one of the things I like doing, I like reading about mathematicians. I like reading about the motivations. I love reading about mathematicians. And also what I found is I like going to these math conferences and you just seeing these mathematicians and they doing the things on the blackboard and the whiteboard, like doing this graffiti. And I was like, whoa. And somebody else said that mathematics is the poetry of logical ideas. And I thought, there you go. Mathematics is the poetry of logical ideas. But one of the things that I did read is when I was studying the world's greatest mathematicians, what I found is that all of them have this common trait, and this is important to you. And they say these are the world's greatest mathematicians. This is what they say. They say a mathematician are not those who find mathematics easy. A mathematician are those who sees a problem and never, ever quits. That's a mathematician.
Yeah.
So a mathematician isn't somebody that finds mathematics easy. Yeah. So a mathematician isn't somebody that sees a problem, I go and breathe on it, and then the problem falls. That's not a mathematician. Yeah.
I see.
They're called computers. That's not a mathematician. Yeah. A mathematician will see a problem and then they will never and have a go, but never quit. See, a mathematician will see a problem and the problem will probably knock them down, but they get up. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, right, why did I go wrong? Did I make a numerical mistake? Or did I make an assumption wrong? Or was there something wrong with my strategy? And they have a go, and they go, and they grow. That's a mathematician. And then when I heard about that, I'm thinking, whoa, I am a mathematician.
Yeah.
Because the myth in school is that a mathematician is somebody that sees a timetable and can say it in 0.0001 nanosecond.
All off by heart, yeah.
And so, they believe that a mathematician, no disrespect to Carol Vorderman, is somebody that will see these long numbers, put them together and go, yeah, that is not a mathematician. A mathematician isn't about memory. Yeah, it isn't about learning. Seeing something the other day, a child, a 10-year-old child, probably, somebody will correct me, or probably a 12-year-old child will know the alphabet A up to Z, So if a child can know the alphabet, then they will be able to recite the most complicated mathematical equation. Do you know what I mean?
So, yeah.
Yeah. But do they understand it?
No.
Could they solve it? No. Could they prove it? Could they use it? No. I think that's the key. That is what makes a mathematician is not somebody mathematician is not somebody that finds it easy. It's like it's almost like, so this is where mathematics is so much very unique as a subject. It's probably much more closer to a sport. If you like basketball, you don't go on the court, stand 30 meters away from the basket, throw the ball and say, that's it. Yeah. I'm done. I quit.
You know it's not going to work, yeah.
It's not going to work. Or somebody says dribble, jump up and throw, and thinking, I dribble, throw, and I miss, and thinking, that's it. This is too hard. No.
Yeah.
It was that basketball player is that they practice, 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 practice. In mathematics, what you do is that you attack and think and attack
until you solve the issue,
and there's a problem and get it wrong, and you say, why did they get it wrong? And what you're doing is that you are actually increasing that investigative analytical mind. It's the same. It's that's why it's called problem solving. and thing is, we all do it. We are problem solvers, but we don't actually associate that with what we was taught as mathematics. You use mathematics every day. You know, what you was taught in school, you use mathematics every day, not just purely on your numbers, you know, working out, you know, the bank account, all that stuff. But when you actually coming up with strategy, logical thinking, that, guess what, is mathematics. Yeah.
It's very interesting when you put it that way, because it makes a lot of sense now, because it's like, even when I'm maneuvering around, I'm always calculating in terms of like how many steps it's going to take me to get here, how many minutes will it potentially take me to reach the train station, and when is the train coming and so forth. So it's always constant calculations. We're constantly working mathematics in our head. In your field of work at the moment, do you feel like a lot more kids are engaging more with maths than they used to, or is there a drop, if you know the stats for that?
I think with with AI and data science and machine learning, I think people are much more inclined saying, "Oh, okay, actually, we're seeing that the numbers are becoming the world's becoming much more digital."
Yeah.
And what you're finding is that there's much more accessibility to learn mathematics. So, for instance, back in the day, when I started, way back. There was natural thing as YouTube or the internet. Do you know what I mean? There was like old school. You go to the library, you get out that book. Do you know what I mean? Hopefully that book's got the information that you need. But now, but see, with me, I'm a combination of new school and old school. I mean, you're talking to me now. This is what you see now. This is my mathematics attack room. And what I have over there, I have 200 mathematical books.
Oh wow!
Two whiteboards up here, one whiteboard down here, and I got some serious computer screen. This is where I do my mathematics. Do you know what I mean? So because there are certain knowledge that you will find in books that you will not find on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I might have gone on a bit of a tangent.
Yeah. No, because I was asking about kids' engagement, and So is that a yes or no answer in regards to like?
I'd say that I think that kids are more realizing that mathematics is more than the times table. I mean, when I do work for I do work for a number of charities. I work with a number of charities. One of the charities that I do support is one called Speakers to School. And it's a case of I go in and then I said, oh, here comes the Nira Chamberlain, Dr. Chamberlain. He's a top mathematician. And then I'm standing in front of about maybe 100 children, 200 children, and I'm thinking, right, if I'm going to tell them about mathematics, the first thing I'm going to do is I better deal with the elephant in the room, because they're going to be thinking sine, cos, tan, algebra. When will I ever use this ever again?
Yeah, that's what everyone says.
That's what my parents told me. When I went home, I say, algebra. When I struggle with the algebra problem, I said to my mum and dad, when I'm struggling with this algebra problem, and my mum and dad will probably say, don't worry, you'll never ever use this ever again. So I have to deal with that issue straight away, because if I'm going to tell them anything about what mathematics is all about and and its usefulness, then I have to deal with that question there and then.
Most definitely. Because I mean, that's what I used to think as well when I left school. I'm like, when am I ever going to use algebra, or the equation table? And now I've got a phone. There's a calculator on there. So what's the point, really? But how do we go about encouraging mathematical creativity? Because I think we're entering into an age where there's so many great opportunities in relations to maths. Like, you're working in AI. There's businesses that need mathematicians to do calculations for them in relations to business modeling or mathematical modeling, as we discussed in terms of predicting competitor movements. So how do you encourage kids and make them understand that there is more to maths than the algebra and the times table that they kind of veering away from because they don't find it interesting or assume that they won't necessarily use it in the future? Because there's so many great opportunities. So can you give a bit more background as to why kids should be more involved in maths and mathematical creativity going forward and the opportunities in the future?
Well, I think it's like this: is that whatever subject you do, whatever profession that you go in, you'll find that your life will be enhanced more with mathematics. Yeah. So I mean, so for instance, this whole idea of a logical argument. So for instance, if I'm a lawyer, if I can argue logically, yeah, if I have a much more mathematical basis to just say, look, really and truly, the probability, the likelihood that person was there, when actually the likelihood that person was there in London when 6 hours, when 2 minutes ago they was actually in New York. How can they have committed? Again, he's coming up with that argument in the strategic logic. And also, for instance, sometimes when you're negotiating a contract or negotiating a deal, and because and I'm saying, well, actually, mathematically, this does not add up. Logically, it doesn't add up. What are your assumptions?
Yeah.
How do you do this? Because I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, what you'll find is in society, a lot of people guess, yeah, and a guess will always be replaced by a guess. But one thing I say about mathematics and a mathematical argument is that a mathematical argument evolves. You can actually evolve. So it's a case of, right, for our kids. I mean, I'm thinking this whole idea of data science and saying, what can I do to predict? For instance, can I predict? When I'm in a car, when can I predict it? Can I predict that when it's gonna fail? So I can say to my parents, guess what? I think you should take your car in for service because we predicted that it's gonna fail.
Yeah.
Guess what? We just saved you some money, and because we just saved you some money, can I have some more pocket money, please?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's where we go. You learn data science and use it to predict. You can predict when the TV is gonna break down, or predict when the boiler is gonna break down, and then build a case to your parents saying, look, I would like more pocket money because I'm using my data science, I'm using mathematical data science to save you money.
Yeah, which is kind of how maths is being used at the moment, which is fantastic, because you just gave the car example. Like most cars nowadays, well, every car tells you when your servicing is due. Like it has a mathematical clock which tells you how many miles your car has ran, and once it reaches that peak, it will alarm you and remind you of it, which sometimes you don't think about it, but then when you realize it's actually down to maths, because it's a calculation which is required in order to program it to enable you to tell you when it's time for servicing.
Yeah. And so, I mean, yeah, so with that, I mean, again, I mean, that's just taking the monitor of the mileage it's done, and and how aggressive or softly that you're driven, and that's also embedded. But mathematics has so many applications, and sometimes you can have simple applications. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. As one of the things that I was been doing on the workshop. Now, I'm from Birmingham, yes, and my team is Aston Villa. Now, one of the things I did was a couple of years ago when Villa was in the Premiership, they were doing very, very badly, and the radio DJ was going, "Oh, so Villa fans, what is the probability of Aston Villa going down?" And all these Villa fans going 20%, 30%, 3%, and then you're having all these betting chops again. I think, wait a minute, there is a mathematical way of actually working out whether Aston Villa will go down. And I came up with this number and a probability, and thinking, away we go. Again, a logical argument. And like I said, for instance, last season, people wanted to know, would Aston Villa make the playoffs? And by just using a simple mathematical algorithm and doing a simulation, I was able to predict the top 5
of the
championship, and I had West Bromwich Albion and Aston Villa on. I predicted the points that they had just using this model. And so I said to the radio station, I said, look, there is a strong likelihood that Aston Villa will be playing West Bromwich Albion in the playoff, because West Brom will finish above Aston Villa and they will have this amount of points, and Aston Villa will have that amount of points. And this was like, it was 10 games to go. Got it.
You got it. You must be a good betting man then.
No, I am using this purely for the academic purposes.
I know.
I don't do it for the gambling. No,
neither do I. Don't worry. It was just a joke. But that's a great way of looking at maths, and it's like sometimes we don't look at the depths of maths and mathematics in general, and the creativity and how big and expansive it is as a subject, because it's everywhere and it's fantastic. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on, just to like encourage people and make them see the other side of maths, because I've been following your content online, and whenever I watch you speak, like the excitement you have for maths is something that I haven't heard from anyone else, which is fantastic.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm glad that you say.
No, definitely, and it's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate that you came on. But before you leave, touching back on the AI again, I know we talked about AI for a bit, but there is the theory of the singular moment. So the singular moment where AI clicks. So as in AI developing its own mind, not developing its own mind, because obviously it's going to consume all of our hard drives and all of our systems that are wired up together. But there's a theory that it's going to reach a singular point, where AI is going to draw all of that information together from all of the sources on the internet, all the information that we've put out there into the world via our phones, via the clouds. What are your thoughts on that singular theory? And when that happens, or if that will happen, what would be the cause?
I mean, this idea that we are, my personal opinion, I believe that we are so far away from that, and I think that there are. It's almost like, you know, what I said before. I don't really mean to say it as a cop out, or am I very biased to my own research? Is there are so many. It's almost like looking at there's an analogy of deal with the closest crocodile to the boat. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Deal was the closest crocodile to the closest crocodile to the boat. I mean, the simulation that I'm talking about is the crocodile. That's your closest crocodile. Yeah. That's realistic. Some aspects of that is happening right now. Yeah. Yeah. Still there? Yeah. 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 Some aspects of that is happening now. Now the whole idea that for instance, let's say you've gone beyond that point, and then you will have an algorithm that will draw in everything, and then somehow will be automated, and then it will be able to make its own AI, and it's self-sufficient, and yeah. Let's put it this way, the problem that I'm working on now is complicated enough to start. And seeing as I would have to say, right, but if we ever get to that point, believe me, the existence of humans will be in such a poor state that it'll be like, do you know what I mean? Yeah.
So it's not a worry then, for in your words, it's not something major that we should be concerning ourselves with.
Well, I think if you could be focusing, it's like I said, if you could be focusing on, if that's not the closest crocodile to the boat, there are closer crocodiles. There are closer crocodiles to the boat. That's not what. Yeah. But to get to that crocodile that you're talking about, and let's say that crocodile is a big crocodile. Guess what? There are closer crocodiles that you've got to go through. You've got to go through and actually. See, there are other crocodiles that you got to go through. Now, seeing as also, not only would have to go through, is that you would have to go through and fail for what you have to say is so. Yeah. So if we ever get to that stage, guess what? We'll be so out of it. Yeah. If it does occur, we'll be just going, so what? You know, it's almost like, you know, playing a football game. I don't know if you're a Tottenham fan.
I'm an Arsenal fan.
Arsenal.
I can't stand Tottenham.
Yeah, that's okay, because you're more happy. You're losing 6-2, and then somebody scores a goal. Doesn't matter. Yeah. You know what I mean? It really doesn't matter. Because you're out of it.
You're really losing, yeah. But so another crocodile, which I think is definitely more closer to home, is like people's fears about AI kicking them out of a job. Because obviously there's one side of it that AI is going to improve our our systems, and it's going to enable us to be free to do other things, more creative. That's one side of the argument. But then the other side is something that we're seeing already. Like, so if you go into a Tesco right now at night time, there's only going to be one member of staff there, and then the rest is going to be automated service systems. So things like that, the fears that some people have is that AI is kind of kicking us out of a job and out of income.
Okay, well, I'll give you I'll give you another analogy, and this is something what people don't absolutely realize, and this is probably why it touches on me personally, is that my dad from the Windrush generation worked at a car factory. Now, guess what? In that car factory, humans and robots worked in coexistence.
Yeah.
They worked in coexistence. The robot did this, the human did that. And the robots and the humans worked in harmony. Not a problem. Until your competitor comes out with its car factory where the robot is more advanced and can do more stuff. And guess what? And it can do it better, quicker, faster. Cheaper. And you're coming out with these cheaper cars, better cars, more good-looking cars than what was done here. And then also this factory is now, you're not keeping up, you can't rip out those robots and put in new robots. We haven't got the money. It's gone. Do you know what I mean? And that is probably much more closer to aligned to my to my research, where you're saying where a company comes up with much more advanced AI. Now, if it comes up with much more advanced AI, it needs less humans, pure and simple. But a human will benefit from that company. But the other humans that say, well, wait a minute, we do have AI, but our AI is not as advanced as their AI. How many times can we keep on upgrading our computers? I've got a computer here. My competitors have got a supercomputer. How can we keep competing with that? Do you know what I mean? These technologies we've seen in the past, but it's going so fast and it's going so expensive that there's some companies that they can't keep up, can't compete. And then there's I use the fast food example. I've seen a fast food restaurant where it's the robots flipping burgers.
Yeah, I've seen it as well. I've seen them chopping up tomatoes and everything. Yeah.
I'm thinking, whoa, you got a consistent burger. This tastes nicer. Do you know what I mean? Away we go. How will your independent fast food be able to compete with that? Cheaper, quicker, faster, better quality. Boom. What can you do? And then seeing is once you start doing that, and you're having, let's say, for instance, if an organization starts producing this advanced AI, it may be in the form of these robots, which are not necessarily going to be robots on the Terminator stage.
Yeah.
Then you get to the stage, as I was saying, is you get into a stage where these companies start influencing and dominating the world economy. And then once doing that, will they make decisions which are conducive to social cohesion?
That's the question. Definitely, Doctor, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I definitely think we should get in touch again and continue this conversation in the part 2, because we've hit the hour mark now, which
wow.
I know time flies when you're having fun, isn't it? But yeah, I'd definitely like to. I mean, I'm going to keep in touch with you, and then hopefully we can continue this in a stage 2 and continue the conversation and develop it further and inform more people about the importance of maths and how creative maths can help develop our world for the better and for the unknown on the other side of the spectrum as well, and encouraging more people to get into maths, because maths is everywhere and it is a very intriguing and interesting topic for people to explore more in depth. So before we go, do you have anything coming up, any shows coming up that you like people to know about, anything that you want to inform my audience about?
Okay, let me think. Okay. Well, I've got right. I'm in Liverpool.
Okay.
I've got a talk on the mathematics can stop an AI on the 14th, which is a Cafe Scientific, and that's in Nottingham.
Oh, Nottingham. Okay.
Then on the 17th or 18th, I think it's 17th.
Yeah.
I've got a talk in Liverpool, which is called Hip Hop to AI: The Real Power of Mathematics.
Hip hop to AI.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting. We need to catch up on that on the podcast after your talk. Yeah.
And then on the 23rd at Leicester University, and then on the 26th at Cambridge University.
Amazing.
I got a talk on the black heroes of mathematics. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So you know, all part of Black Hero Month. My contribution to Black Hero Month, I'll talk about the black heroes of mathematics.
Yeah.
But my big talk, talk is my biggest talk that I've ever done.
Yeah.
Will come next year in May. So you know, I'll send you the details.
Definitely, yeah. I'll be there, and I'll pop all the details down as well. Yeah.
Now this is on the loads of notice. The 29th of May. Yeah. It's going to be at the Royal Institute of Great Britain.
Oh, amazing.
And it's an iconic theatre. And what you do is I'm locked up in a room for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they open up the door, they fill up the theatre, and then they open up the door, no introductions, then I have to come, and then I just have to talk. Do you know what I mean? And just do the talk. Now, and that talk will be on, again, the mathematics that can stop an AI apocalypse. Now, it'll be different from the one in Nottingham. This one will be, will very much be full on. So,
amazing. I'm definitely going to pop all the information regarding all your upcoming events that in my descriptions, and encourage people to go and check them out when available. And I'll be there for next year's one if I'm around for the May's one. I'll definitely come and check that out and keep supporting your movement. And we'll definitely catch up again for part 2 recording of the podcast. We're going to cover all the various other subjects that you're doing as well. So, Dr. Nira, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'd like to thank you again for turning up to Let's Do Humans.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for the Let's Do Humans, and thank you for agreeing to do this over Skype, because then I'm going down to London.
I know it's a hectic one. I know it's busy, but we'll definitely catch up again, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Yeah.
And you have a nice evening.
Take care. Thank you very much.
Bye.